Awesome. Okay. Yeah, we are back, everyone. Thanks for coming back after lunch. Hopefully, everyone had a good lunch. We've got just a few things on the agenda for this afternoon, the blue ribbon only portion of the meeting. I figured we could talk a little bit about this morning's session. I know there was one project that folks wanted to discuss. We do have about, I think it's 4 projects for this afternoon. I'll just scroll down here. And then 2 that we're just going to briefly talk about that are just ongoing that we will fund, but 4 that we'll want you guys to hear more about. And then we've got our typical blue ribbon ongoing business, and there's just a list here. And I do have some of you maybe have heard our DWR Wild podcast. That was Drew Cushing and Robert Shields talking about our fisheries implementation plan. So I wanted to present a little bit about that because you're going to hear more and more about that. There was a press release that just went out. It's one of those things I've been meaning to share with you guys and give you kind of a heads up because you are the Blue Ribbon Council and you should be aware of what we're thinking and what we're up to, but it just never fit into our agendas. They've been so packed lately. So that's what it looks like for this afternoon. First, though, I'm going to ask, we've got 2 openings coming up, which we are sad about, but it's always nice to have new people. We've got 2 potential Blue Ribbon members, and I was hoping you guys could introduce yourself. Maybe Jeremy, will start with you and go to Jim. And they're just I just asked them to talk for a couple of minutes. I think probably what everyone gets to do when you first, come and visit with the Blue Ribbon Council. Just tell us about yourself, your fishing experience, your interest in the council, that sort of thing.
So I'm Jeremy Curley. I have lived right in Linden my whole life and been fishing the whole time. I mean, I fished about every kind of fish that we've got here, from big lake trout and Flaming Gorge to bluegill in the urban ponds. Spent a lot of time at Strawberry working with Alan for the last 20 years, doing a lot of gill netting and planting and stuff like that. I've done a lot of stuff with Mike and Chris and Tyler at Utah Lake. Actually still a part of the Utah Lake fisheries management program that they've got right now. That's pretty well it.
Thank you. Jim, do you want to go ahead?
There we go. Yeah.
I was sorry, Jim. You're good. You've already been voted in. You're good.
So I don't need to say anything.
You don't need to. No.
Good.
We actually, this could be confusing. We would have another Jim, but I think we'll figure it out. But thank you.
Okay, my name is Jim Fraser. Is this working? I'm a little quiet, so. My name is Jim Fraser. Unlike Jeremy, I'm not a native of Utah, but I have lived here. Well, I've fished in Utah now 39 years in a couple of different areas. I didn't know quite how to or what to get ready for an introduction, so I brought some data. I call it data because I take really good records of my fishing trips. And so in the last 5 years, I have fished in 8 blue ribbon waters, 32 fishing trips a year on average, not quite as many as Jeremy. 80% of those are warm water fish as far as targeting goes. A few years back, I got involved in 10 years now, in a catfishing contest statewide through the Big Fish Tackle website. And I developed a passion for catching large catfish at Utah Lake. That's, so I can't catch salmon anymore. I grew up in Oregon, so large catfish. And it's been a great opportunity. After 10 years, I finally won the contest. But the thing that I wanted to say was, when I first started, I was tickled to death to get a 30-inch catfish. 2024, when I won, we boated 78 fish over 30 inches. So I like learning. That's the main thing. In fact, I lost his name. Jeremy? Okay. He recognized me a little while ago because in 2025, I was actually on KSL Outdoors showing Adam Meikle how to catch catfish at Utah Lake. And our high five moment was when he caught his biggest one ever in that show. So, but I'm not just about catfishing. In my boat in the last 2 years, we've landed 17 different species, and 11 of those were warm water species. And so here's some data that no one else has ever heard. I hope it doesn't go past this room, but I wanted you to get an idea about breadth and depth. The average count for the last 2 years for the top 5 species, 534 channel catfish, 301 trout of 6 different species, 194 perch, 100 white bass, and 42 walleye. Over the years, I mentored 35 young men to the Fishing Merit Badge in scouting, and in the last 10 years, about 70 different individuals have been on my boat so I could share what I've learned and my passion and hopefully ignite some in them. And I'm not a guide, but I just like to take people out. And this has been an exciting new experience for me, so thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you both. I appreciate the information. Larry and Russ have one more meeting June, so I was hoping you guys could attend today. We'd hear from you. You could see what was going on, and then we could, if you're interested still, if we haven't scared you away, come back in June. I'll keep you on the invite list, and we will vote on filling those positions in June. That's typically the schedule. So that's kind of what I was thinking. And then just a heads up for the council. So Russ is chair, and I think I should have let you start the meeting. I didn't even think about it. Sorry. Just take over. Anyway, so we need to vote on a new chair so I can take the meeting away from someone else next time. And so that's just a heads up. We can do that during that meeting as well. So the next agenda item was just talking about the projects. So Habitat Council will always vote on, like, in the, I don't know their exact process, but I know that they will vote kind of like project by project, say yay or nay. It'll move to the next round. We don't typically do that. We just have you guys score, but I know there was a little bit of concern from the morning, and so I'll open the floor to any concerns that, if anyone wanted to discuss anything.
I wanted to talk about Mike's project, Mike Slater's. And the reason is like if you give him the highest scores in the couple of areas that, his project touches, he only gets 25 points, which isn't very high out of a total of 45, right? So I talked to Mike about, oh, there's Mike right there. I talked to Mike about this, and so maybe what we could do is like just score his project as part of the overall project. Like say that the overall project that has been done so far, since this is really part of it that just got pushed out, we just agree that his project has that score as the initial project, and really don't vote on his.
And I'd like to add to that, what if it's, because Mike's is 25 points, snow removals, the highest he could get is 25. What if it's a percentage? What if we say that's all the points available here? What percentage of those available points did it score? And so at 25, it's 100%, where some of these others are 45 at 100%. And change it to a percentage of total points instead of just those points.
I guess I should turn that on. So there are other projects that, because it is kind of split out, right, where you have, access, the fishery, and the other, was it habitat, right? So it's like it scores all of those, and then whether or not it has a high likelihood of getting completed or being successful. And so, yeah, I could see where, because it's just an outreach project, then it can't score as high as some of the others that would touch on outreach and habitat and the fishery. But I like the idea of thinking of it as a complete, because it is the last part of an access project, right? So, and it's important, I don't think we probably shouldn't separate out the, you know, the angler component of that, right, and the I&E, the education portion of that. So in my mind, it makes sense to think about it as a whole, like what state parks has done. In fact, I know when I used to submit projects, I would try and submit like multi-years and spending like fiscal, this is what we did in fiscal 25 and 26 and 27, and it got too confusing. But you do want to think of these as larger projects.
But like Mickey said, when I first mentioned this to Mickey, the snow removal is in the same bucket, that it can only score a total of 25 points, you know, and it's not the extension. So his percentage that you can only get, you know, 25 points, that's your 100% mark. It falls into that.
Yeah.
But for Mike's project, I still think we should just lump it all together and call it the original score.
Yeah, so I think kind of what you're asking is like, so the scoring doesn't really allow for nuance, right? So I think we would all say like, oh yeah, Mike, you need your kiosk, you need your signage, because all of those things, the access and where people can and can't stop their boat, those all like indirectly touch the other scoring things. But maybe in a situation like this, we could score it, and then, but is it also where we like could just make a motion to vote to approve it or not, or do our bylaws not allow for something like that to happen? Is it only based on the scoring? You know, because if we score it at 100%, it's not going to meet the threshold. Is kind of what you're saying.
Well, that's
But-
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So could we, hey, score it at what we could score it at, but then make a motion to approve it regardless that it scores lower because.
Yeah, that's so we haven't done it that way, and scoring is important because it is kind of an order, and we try and maintain. Even if I were to say, hey, Habitat Council, can you fund, say, the Strawberry River, right? Like that's entirely Habitat, and you know, like we can't quite fund it all. Can you guys foot that bill? We try to maintain that order, right? Where you look at the bottom of the list and, well, it didn't rank out as high, so it's not as important, right? So maybe we don't have to worry as much about that. So the score is important in that sense because we do try to maintain that
I just
order.
Thinking of other solutions to get the project to pass.
That's where I thought the
But-
percentage, if it's, you know, Mike's project, on my score gets 25, that's as high as I can give it.
Yeah.
But I've got one right below it that's 45. It might not be a more important project, but it's scored a lot higher.
I think if we were going to do that, I would like to see people score it 0 through 10 instead of doing 0, 5, 10, or 0, 10, like either yes or no. If we could try and have the shades of gray in there, because otherwise it's either going to be yes or no, right? You're not going to have anything in between. You're not going to get that list. So or that list with, you know, just the gradations, right? Of this scored out really high, this scored out really low, and these were in between. And so if you could do like this scored a 3 here, then I can kind of see what people's real feelings were instead of just 0 or 10. So I'm not opposed to trying it. Like I don't know if we need a motion. Does anyone know Robert's Rules of Orders or any of these sorts of things? Like, I'm not opposed to trying. Let's see how it goes.
So what's the proposal?
The percentage.
What would the proposal be? We kind of kicked around a few things.
So I guess, Mickey, do you want to put it in words, what you were?
So if we list the highest point that it could score, that's 100%. And do it as a percentage instead of as a total number. So Mike's is going to get 25 points. That is 100%. It got every point it could get. The next one right below it scored 45. That scored a lot higher. Well, now 45 is 100% on the next one because it does hit everything. It hits fish, it hits habitat, it hits access. So it has the possibility of scoring higher.
Yeah.
So as a percent, I don't know.
The only thing I worry about, and I'm not saying it's a deal breaker, I think it just means that I need to go in and add in another column, but that could like that could be a little bit on the subjective side, right? Like some people might think of it as, okay, this could score this amount, and others might say, no, it could only score this amount. But if we treat it as a percentage, as long as I know what you think it could score, right? Because I think it could work. I think we just need to try it, and then we can maybe talk about it in the June meeting, like how it went. So let me see if I can.
Or the other way, I like this idea, but if we do that, it might change the way the biologists propose things to us, you know. But if we scored it and then there was some way to account, like say for the nuance, sorry to be redundant, but to say it only scored 25 points, but we really need this, or something like that. And so Mickey would put, this scores 100% of all that it could get, so it, you know, gives it extra credibility for the funding. I don't know.
I've seen like Winty has discretionary points, but I think when you're talking the difference between 25 and 45, right, that's discretionary points aren't going to get you that difference. So
Well, I think you try it, or you look at and see what it gives you. But I think you know, us having a conversation and agreeing that this is actually an important project because of the bigger picture of what it will actually accomplish and do for that fishery and that launch area, you know, just in the quality of what it might be and so forth. I think if we have that discussion and we all feel it's important, I think that should give it a little bit of, you know, when you do your with the other coordinators and stuff, the wheeling and dealing of funding and you know, swapping sources and things, then it can weigh into that factor of when you decide, you know, when DWR decides to plug in the projects and fund them. I don't know if that makes any sense.
If we just had everyone say, look, this project should be funded, right? Like I'm giving it the max score that it can actually get. That score isn't reflective of my actual thoughts here, right? So that's it. If everyone just maybe had 3 projects where you're like, I don't care what the score is, fund this. Something like that. Like then it's not discretionary points where you're trying to make up 20 points. But you're saying this one just needs to get funded. This is what Blue Ribbon should be funded.
Like America's Got Talent, they have like the golden ticket. Like this is
yes, yes. Maybe Blue Ribbon needs. Everyone can have 1 or 2 golden tickets, if that's what you want to call it, right? That I take into.
It's got to be like, you know, the cutthroat ticket. I don't know.
The cutthroat ticket. So are you saying like add another column that was more like a yes/no vote? As a final column, we had a yes/no vote. Like, yes, we want to fund it.
I don't even know. I don't need to know all of those. I think I just need to know, because most everyone will send the file right in an email, and if you just tell me, if we don't fund Provo River, we're numbnuts. We've got to fund this, right? So then I know that's your golden ticket. Or if we want to vote 2, do we want to vote 3? I don't know, but.
But if we had a second column or a column, we could just make a yes/no vote on. Would that solve the problem? Scores 25, but then the last column's a yes/no or a 1 through 10. Potentially 10 being fund it, 0 being I don't want to fund it.
But that percentage. I feel like the percent
Can I ask
lets me know the same
Excuse
thing.
me.
No, go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
No, I'm just curious. I'm new, so this is all new to me. But it would seem that the point totals are not necessarily reflective or a definitive statement of the value of the program. You know, that's the bottom line, because something might be a unique one. Others may share 3 or 4 of the categories. Is there a way to assess the urgency of each request? There's a limited amount of money. It's not totally limited, but so you have to set some type of hierarchy of need. And I would wonder if there's some way to establish, could one program wait until next year and not have a negative effect on whatever the goal may be, or does it have to be done this year? Is there a way to sometime set a hierarchy that would help us
I
make.
think generally, and maybe the biologists could agree or disagree, I think generally, though, the timing is typically such that the time is now. That's why I'm presenting these to you. So I'm ready to receive funding July 1. I'm a little, oh, poor Tyler. Those reservoir habitat projects, I'm going to throw them under the bus here. I'm not sure that's always the case because of the permitting process, but I know he believes he's going to get that permit. I just question whether that happens. But I think for the most part, though, the urgency is like these projects could be completed July 1 through June 30th of next year. And that's why they're being presented. Now, whether they have to be, I would argue that a lot of them don't necessarily have to be, but the timing is right, if that makes sense. Does that seem like a good way to say it?
That being said, I would have to add to my project, I screwed up then because I was prepared a year ago. The timing's right. We want to do it. It's a part of $1 million project.
Yeah,
I couldn't do this last piece of the project because of lots of other reasons. There was just nothing I could do to control that.
Yeah.
So now I'm coming in with
So it's overdue now.
Band-Aid for the $1 million project, but they're somehow not connected, and I should have maybe connected those two a little bit better for you at some point. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I think they are connected. So. Go ahead, Terry.
I like the idea of being able to give it a percentage because this has been an issue that we've talked about every year. And being able to say, I really feel strongly about this project tells you that we do feel strongly about that particular project, where the points that we're putting down really don't tell you that. And that's a concern. So I do like the percentage or a 1 to 10 at least, because then I can say, I don't feel really strongly about this one. So the 1 to 10 is the same thing as the percentage, really.
Yeah, let's do.
So that 1 to 10 at the end doesn't even necessarily need to be weight bearing on the overall score. It could just be like how strongly we feel about it.
Yeah. So, but that percentage will kind of explain some of that rationale too. So let me add, and Mickey, not to point you out, but since you got the paper copy, maybe just add in like the total points that you think it could even score. And then, let's do a 1 through 10. 10 is, we've got to fund this. 1 is, meh, I could take it or leave it, right? You probably won't have any of those. But that way we've got the percentage, and then I've got whether or not you look like you're in disagreement.
Well, I like it.
You do? Okay. Okay. So, what I'll do is I'll kind of evaluate maybe like what tells me more, like what's more helpful. Do we need both of those, or we just need one of those? And so if that works for you guys, I'll go ahead and add that in tomorrow to the score sheet. Some of you have already submitted your scores. Were you guys planning on scoring before tomorrow morning, if I could get it in the morning? Or maybe I could even do it this afternoon after the meeting.
So is it going to be a percentage, or is it going to be a 1 to 10 scale?
Yeah, so I'll have your total score that you've awarded. I'm going to add a column that's going to say like total points possible. So that's going to be where you're going to tell me how many points you think is possible. Because remember how I was saying that could be subjective, person to person. I'm not saying that it is, but for Provo River, it'd be 25 points. You're going to fill in, it's 25 points total possible. And then if you gave it a 25, then I can calculate that's 100%. And then I'll do the calculation. All you have to do is tell me how many points you think are possible, and then give me a 1 to 10 score of how passionate you are about funding that project. And maybe we only need one of those. We can talk about which is easier later, but let's do that. And it'll be in there before tomorrow morning at 10, because that's when games start tomorrow. So, okay, so if you can hold off, if you haven't done anything yet, if you can hold off till 10 a.m. tomorrow. Does that work? To at least give it a whirl, see how it goes? Okay. Were there any other, I know there was another concern, or I guess we were going to talk about, sorry, Brian, I'm just going to point people out, but there was a discussion point about maybe talking about splitting out your project, right? The Bridgeport launch versus the habitat work. And I just wondered if you guys had any strong feelings about that.
I mean, to me, it seems like better to split that one out because I like the idea of the boat ramp, but I don't necessarily know that I'm sold on the private land ownership if the angler's not benefited in any way. Or, that's my thought.
So access is kind of your deal breaker. Without some kind of access in there.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of money for a landowner that doesn't do anything in return to the general public isn't maybe the best way to spend public funds. So.
Anybody else?
Well, and I think too, with the boat ramp, there was a lot of specifics. The road's going to go here, the boat ramp's going to go here, and it's going to do X, Y, and Z. With the other one, there were a lot of questions that I think could be fleshed out through your work you're going to do with the landowner and things like that. And so I think that would be, we split off the part that is more specific. We know exactly what we're getting for the funding. And then the other part can be fleshed out later. So
Okay.
I like the idea of splitting it up.
So you'd like to just see more information?
Yeah.
About on that section. Okay.
Like, I don't know what a J-hook is.
That's
Like, I don't know. Well, I know like at the shape, but I heard it twice and they're like, hey, we're going to do a J-hook structure. I'm like, that's awesome. It just seems like a jetty or something, but.
so it kind of creates an eddy.
Okay. That I kind of got there in my mind, but I was like, when they were just saying like.
So we need to tell biologists to explain stuff better.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
don't
all you
know.
guys' acronyms, you guys are across the room. DLDOB, BO Lolo. And we're like, okay.
I understood it.
Yeah, sure, you did. I'm in education. We have a lot of acronyms, so it's nice to know.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
The J-hooks are what the biologists learned at that training that we're asking you to send us to. Just redirecting the water.
So I have one thing, Trina, about that private landowner guy. So I owned property until recently on the Strawberry River, which was the happiest day of my life when we bought it until my most happy day when we sold it. And I mean, rivers move, and when you buy property on a river, if you don't know that, you're going to learn it, and that you are a private landowner. That is, because I tried to get them, the UDOT put rocks to protect their road that went alongside my property, which turned the river back onto my house and propane tank, and that was my problem. Even though they created that problem for me. They did price out the rocks that they could tell me who to contact to put them in there. Let me tell you, it was a lot. Yeah. It was a lot. I didn't do that. But my point is, it's private land. It's private land.
Yeah.
Didn't help me.
No, and I saw it twice with farmers on the Middle Provo and on the Weber between Rockport and Echo, where they cut the river straight, so they had straight fence lines. I watched it happen. We fought it on the Weber, tried to figure out what was going on, and nobody could give us an answer. That's why I wondered if they had pictures before he built his farm, how straight was the edge of his property.
Yeah.
Was that created, and now it's a problem?
Mm-hmm.
And it does, I mean, the silt, it is gonna keep washing away. Mm-hmm. They did that down the Sevier. They rounded out those banks. And I think instead of fixing the river, they need to round those banks so they're not going to slough off anymore.
It would be interesting, Brian, if you could go back and see, like, find any of that early 80s aerial imagery. I think that stuff exists, right? The green does.
The imagery exists on aerial. If you go on Google Earth, you can see early 80s. It's not early enough to see the inception point, but it's early enough to see, it started
There used to be a place down, not too far from here. I can't even remember what it was called, but you could get aerial imagery way back. Google Earth, I just looked at it. It only goes to 85 on that particular stretch, and the 85 imagery is horrible. You can't really even see anything. But there definitely has been changes from 2011 to now, or 2023, which is the last image they have in there for that. But this
Definitely
place
showed
over
up
here
then.
by the BLM office, it's right close to it, and it is a federal agency. But we used to go get imagery there all the time. They have the whole state plotted out. So and you can get some pretty old stuff there, as old as me probably.
Just making sure you got her comment pretty concisely for me, that there are inherent risks of owning property.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Want to make sure that's right.
Right. No, I won't. I won't. Right. So it sounds like the consensus is, do we need to split that out? If I guess if you're opposed, let me know. I'm not gonna call for a vote. So, okay. We'll split that out. So that will be I'll do that before 10 a.m. tomorrow as well.
Would you like me to go into the database and change that project out?
Yeah, when you get a minute, you don't have to have your part done by 10 a.m. tomorrow, because that'll be a little bit more complicated. But yeah, if you could do that, just so it's reflective. Thanks. Okay, good. Anything else anyone wanted to bring up about this morning's projects? If not, let's.
Sorry, one last thing. Sorry to believe.
No, it's fine.
Speaking of splitting up projects, the snow plowing.
Yeah.
I don't know if Alan meant to mention that they only needed like $8,300 to plow for a season. That was like half of his ask.
I think that's on average, right? So if you have a big year.
So like this year we probably have some rollover, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
But anyways, I just thought maybe that's another one we could split up if some other people needed money.
If that money doesn't get used, does that give you some flexibility to place that somewhere else?
If I know that it's not going to get used, right, you can kind of tell, right, like by this time of year, especially like a snowplow. If I know how much we're going to get charged to that budget, then yeah, we could repurpose that. We can't carry money over in this program, but we can just repurpose it. We call it third quarter enhancements. So we didn't fund it this year, but last year we did, and I hope we did that. If we didn't, then that was bad on our part. That shouldn't have happened. So yeah, you could, if you if we wanted, we could just say we could give him less money than what he's asking, or if it's a project that's or maybe we've got like, even after everything we're going to fund, sometimes there's kind of like a little bit of space, right? It's like, okay, we've got about $6,000 left. We do have to fund admin, but maybe we could just then say, maybe give the rest to the snowplow project or something like that, right? Like there may be some possibility, but it kind of depends on how it ranks out too. So if it ranks out really high, I think, it's important and we give them the full funding. And if it, like the last time, it definitely ranked out lower. That's why we didn't fund it last year. It ranked out really low, which could be because it's the total possible is low, which we're correcting. I guess what I'm saying is we'll see. We've got some flexibility. And yeah, we'll make sure we spend the money even if they don't spend the money. Okay. Okay, are we good to go? Okay. Okay, Mike, you are up. I'll bring up your project. Just let me know.
You'll drive the
Yes.
here?
I think if I do that, that doesn't close down the meeting yet.
Okay. Thank you for the discussion on that earlier project, and it helps me maybe for the future. I think I might do things maybe a little bit different and tie things together a little bit more, rather than just assuming, hey, it went just fine last time and it's a part of this project. I know that, but you obviously don't know that or didn't know that or something. So that really helped me.
So,
Quick thing on that project, when you get that map made that's gonna be on the kiosk, is that something that can be available to the public?
absolutely.
Map.
Yeah, we would probably put that on our website. We have a map on our website right now, but it's got some red and some green and different things that we don't necessarily dare put on that in fear of, oh, somebody's going to see this and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? But the map that we put on that kiosk, yes, we're still working on that. There's still some moving parts as we speak to see what's going to be red and what's going to be green. But yes, we would certainly want to make that a public. Yes, definitely put it out there and say, hey, here's where you can go play. For sure, we'll do that. We're going to have the holes named. We're going to have a parking spot named. We're trying to identify everything that's known and
You're
direct.
really going to identify the holes?
Oh, absolutely.
Are people going to get mad at you?
No,
for that?
everybody knows what those holes
Oh.
are. Yeah, no, it's pretty well recognized, I think. We won't do Pine Run, Spring Hole, Hoover Hole. Some of those big ones, absolutely, we'll have those named on the map so that people can kind of recognize them. So, cool. I got one question on that. How do you treat the sign board if it changes in the next few years? If that's a 30-year supposed sign, how's that treated when the sign potentially needs to
The signs themselves are going to be made out of aluminum, and then they'll have a projection painted or printed on those. Those will be screwed to the big giant kiosk. Those we can just take off and replace at any point in time. They're going to get vandalized. They're going to get beat up. So that's why we'll print those and be able to reprint if needs be, or change or adjust them as needs be. Yep, good question.
And we are changing our logo. Don't forget.
And that's another thing that
yeah.
Jenny and I have been, our outreach folks and I have been working on.
Does she have it?
We're delaying it just enough to where we can have all the new logos and the new pretty
Perfect.
colors and different things. Yep. So it'll be different. So, all right, shifting gears. I wanted to talk about Fall Creek. And I will try and tie this together a little bit more as to what we've been doing up there. Been working with the Northeast region folks, the biologists out there, to go into very large drainages. We're talking 20 miles worth of stream or more, or 50 acres of lakes or more, to where we're going into these locations, and they're typically locations that are out in the middle of nowhere. We're not trying to pick the drainage that's next to the road that you and I are going to go and park and try and catch fish. We're trying to pick locations where it makes sense that doesn't get used a whole lot, so it's going to impact fewer people if it's their favorite place to go fish for brook trout, for example. So what we will do in Fall Creek is we will go into this drainage and we will remove all the brook trout, the rainbows, the cut bows, whatever fish are there. We will remove them using rotenone, and then we will go back in and replace them with the native Colorado River cutthroat trout. The reason I share this is we try and pick locations where it's going to impact the fewest number of people, but we have to do some of these projects to prevent the Colorado River cutthroat from being listed as an endangered species. Because if those fish were listed as an endangered species, you and I are not going to be able to go and ride a horse there. We're not going to be able to go and play in the water there. We're not going to be able to go and fish there. It hampers our ability to recreate in general when species are listed. So that's one of the main goals for the Division of Wildlife, is to prevent any species from ever being listed, to put it into that category that restricts opportunity. So Fall Creek is about 14 miles from the nearest trailhead. So it's a long ways in to the Uintas. It's a long ways to get into there to do this work. As a part of that, and working with the Forest Service, lots of different agencies, there was permitting that was taking place. The NEPA process was engaged, and it was determined what we could and what we could not do. The only way we can go into this area in particular, the same as with OWEEP, which you've helped us fund in the past, another large drainage, is with horses or mules. We cannot take a helicopter in there in one day and drop all the equipment there and fly back out and be done. We need to utilize horses to take in all this equipment, and it's not just a one-day deal. we are asking for some money to help fund an outfitter who has 20 mules, who can take in the rotenone, who can take in the camping gear, who can take in the float tubes, to all the gear and the equipment associated with such a large project. Garn has done a wonderful job out there with the DWR horses and trying to get in and do some of these projects. But when it gets this large and this big, we don't have the number of horses, we don't have the number of personnel. We need to go to an outfitter who is geared up for this kind of work to bring in 16 people plus others to get into a location like this and help us do the work within a drainage. Does that make sense? So really what I'm coming to you for is some funds to help pay an outfitter to get all of us DWR employees, Forest Service employees, the gear, the equipment, the camping stuff, the food, all of that stuff in 13 miles or 20 miles, wherever we're doing the work. He tends the horses, he takes care of camp, he cooks the food, which allows us as biologists to go in and dispense the rotenone, to take care of the fish, to remove the fish, to do all the biology work while he's dealing with all the other stuff. Again, we've tried this on other occasions when we're doing some recon work and stuff, and we spend half of our day dealing with horses, tying up horses, letting them feed, doing all this other stuff. Then we hurry and we run out and do some of the biology, and then it just takes a lot more time. So with this particular outfitter, we've gone through a bidding process with the state of Utah. Multiple outfitters put in a bid, say, this is what we'll charge, this is how we'll do it, this is when we'll do it. And we've arrived at Rusty Farnsworth Outfitting, who has helped us. This will be the 4th year in a row that he has taken us into different locations, and it's been exceptional. It's been awesome. It has been, for us as biologists, a godsend to have somebody able to get us in there and take care of us and allow us to do what we know how to do, and let him be the cowboy and deal with what he knows how to do. This is the 2nd year of a 2-year project in Fall Creek. Last year we went in and did the exact same thing. We treated 7-8 miles of stream. Actually, let's go to some pictures. We don't want to just look at words. Yeah, sure. That'll just show us the drainage. These are the kinds of areas that we're working in. This is the Fall Creek drainage. We're treating everything all around here, except for right up in here, there's another lake, and we're leaving that as a brook trout lake. We're not in the business of removing brook trout from the state and putting nothing but cutthroat in. That is not what we're about, even though the public tends to think that at times. There's locations.
Can you please speak into the microphone?
We want them there. We want people to be able to go and catch. Oh, yeah. We want people to go and catch the brook trout. But all through these streams, these other lakes, these are some of the main lakes that we'll be treating. Those are where it makes sense for us. Let's remove the fish that are there and put the Colorado River cutthroat trout back in.
Just clarify, so the one up top that you're leaving alone is probably disconnected completely?
It's completely
no
disconnected. It's called Continent Lake. It's a very large, deep, big lake, and it's got all kinds of cutthroat in it as well as brook trout. We're going to leave that alone. Again, give people a diverse opportunity when they want to come all the way up into the Fall Creek drainage. Hey, come over here and catch your cutthroat. Come up here and catch your brook trout. Come over here to catch or shoot your elk, whatever. There's lots of different opportunities up in here. Does that make sense? And that really is the approach that we as an agency have taken in all of these projects up in the Uintas. We're not about removing one and putting another in completely, wholesaling it at all. We want everybody to be able to have that different opportunity where it makes sense. Let's go to the next one. I don't know what it shows. Again, just another picture of the drainage. One thing, I guess the reason I put this in, you can see an awful lot of dead trees in here. This used to be all green. But as we were in there doing some of our recon work and effort, a wildfire came through and actually came up and burned the entire Fall Creek drainage. So it totally changed what we were doing. We were planning on treating about 19 miles of stream. That narrowed down to about 7 miles of stream. That's because the fire removed 2/3 of the fish that were in the whole drainage. Okay, we just lost fish because of the wildfire and the ramifications from that. So that's changed things, and it made Tyler a nice job of reconning and figuring out where are these streams, where are the fish, where is the water. 10 times easier. I think we would have got lost 10 times trying to fight through all the pines and stuff, but we could just see everything, and it made things a whole lot easier for us. Okay, what else do I have there? These others, do I need to really? Yeah, I might go through. This is just the process. I don't know if you're familiar with how rotenone works, but we drip a very, very small amount of rotenone in the streams. And when I say small amounts, I mean drips. We used maybe a gallon of rotenone for 7 miles of stream last year. So it doesn't take very much stuff. People think we're going in and we're bringing this poison in and we're just going to, it's not that at all. Now the lakes, there's a lot of water, a lot of volume in the lakes. We put 75 gallons in one of the lakes because it was 37 feet deep, 17 acres in surface area. It takes a lot more to mix that throughout all of that water. So that's kind of the process that we do, and we'll usually drip it in these streams for about 4 to 6 hours. Once that rotenone touches the fish, they don't have the ability to utilize the oxygen that's in the water anymore. So it's only killing gilled organisms. So your macroinvertebrates, they'll be affected. Your cows, your elk, me and you, we would not be affected. Now we're not going to let you go and drink this green water, but in actuality, I could drink it and I would be just fine. So just the small amounts that we're using. So maybe just a little education on rotenone and how that works. That next. The only reason it's green is I put some dye in it so that the next guy or gal downstream, oh, hey, the rotenone's making it to me. So they can just see that, oh, yeah, we've effectively treated this whole half mile of stream. Yeah, it's not got color to it. It's just, you'd never be able to see it in the water itself. So, thanks, Brian. That next one. This is just them going out into the lakes. This is how we dispensed it. Garn's got a wonderful system set up on these kick boats to where we'll go out in the kick boat and just drip the rotenone throughout the lake itself. Next one. Again, going in on horses. This is just a necessity. We wish we could go in on helicopters, make it much quicker, much safer, much better, but that's just not been allowed in the NEPA process. It was determined horses are the way you're going to get in there, or hiking. But 20 miles in is a long ways to go in, or 14 miles is a long ways to go in and carry all your gear, your camping gear, everything else. I'm going way too long. Sorry. The next one, I think that was it. So what we did this last year, after we completed the rotenone treatment of all of these waters, the lakes and the streams, we actually stashed a lot of the gear, a lot of the equipment. We just left it there, put it under tarps, and we anticipate that we'll go back up this summer and we'll find all that stuff still there, and we'll be able to utilize that once again. At the end of this year, we'll have the outfitter. He will take all of this stuff back out with him. We won't leave anything in. But where we were planning on doing it a second time, we felt it was, rather than have him haul it out and haul it back in, costing us a whole lot more money, it's a way for us to save some money. So, and these projects, the reason we do it a second time is we typically never kill everything on the first go around, especially in lakes and maybe even some of these small streams where you have young of the year fish or small fish. If we're spending this kind of money and this kind of effort, we want to make sure we do it right, and so we'll do it 2 consecutive years typically. So I think that's probably it. This is Rusty. He's our outfitter. He'll have a couple of cow hands with him, helping him, again, safely getting us all in and out of there. Finances, yeah, let's just touch base on that. What it's going to cost us this year is he has given us a bid for $39,000 to get all of the gear, the equipment in, out, people, food, cooking for us, tending horses, taking care of everything from start to finish. And again, just to remind you, this isn't just a one trip in and one trip out. he'll probably spend 2 to 3 trips before we even show up, just taking gear in, getting stuff in there, getting camp all set up, and then we'll all meet at a trailhead. We'll all go in on one day, do our work, spend a couple of days, and then he'll get us back out, and then he'll spend another couple of days with his pack mules and stuff, 20 of them, bringing everything back out. So it's about $39,000 is what we're asking for. And I would mention this, it may be just slightly less than that because there's some aspects of the project we did last year that we do not need to do this year. And the only reason I mention that because you had a discussion just a few minutes ago with Alan. Yeah, he could probably propose, I only need $8,300 this year, and then we have a big snow year. Oh, actually, I need $14,000. It's almost impossible to get that extra little bit of money, but it's really easy to give the $4,000 back, if that makes sense. So I'm leaving this at $39,000, but keep in the back of your minds it might be closer to $30,000, $35,000 is what he will actually submit a bill for or an invoice for. But I don't want to go there. I want to just leave it at this is what the contract is for, and we've just reinitiated the same contract from last year to this year.
Yeah, you never know when something comes up.
Yep. If something else might come up. Oh my gosh, our float tubes didn't work. We need to bring more stuff in.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, there's a whole nother trip. Yeah, actually, we do need that extra $4,000 to make another load. So.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any
Thanks for letting me ramble on that quite a bit, but it's an awesome project. It's been very, very effective what the Northeast Region biologists have been doing and allowing me to come in and kind of take a little bit off of their plate and make this happen. And we're making serious progress with the Colorado River cutthroat trout. We're getting about that close to where we're going to kind of step away from these kinds of projects and say, we've done enough. They're not going to be threatened or listed as an endangered species. We don't believe. And I think this is the last year we will be using an outfitter because I think the next project is not going to be in a wilderness area. We'll be able to go back to helicopters and getting some work done that way. So I think this is the last time we'll come to you for some funding for an outfitter.
That's a good point.
So good news.
Yep. Any questions for Mike? You were very thorough, so.
Awesome.
Thank
you.
Can you please turn your mic on? I don't mic turn on. Thank you. So yeah, 150 feet long, 20 feet deep, but this one got ran over in the middle of the night when we were set. So this is why I need a new net, and that's why I'm coming to you guys to ask for funds to improve some of the gear we have lost. We also have gill nets, our standard gill nets that we use on our reservoirs like Deer Creek. The curtain nets are used on Jordanelle and Strawberry. So Wes and Alan are also in need of a lot of new nets. They've done a lot of additional research the last couple of years on kokanee recruitment, plus their standardized sampling, and their nets are becoming too expensive to repair. So this is what happens when a boat runs over a net. It's not really salvageable at that point. It gets caught up in somebody's prop, and they're mad at us. I don't know how I didn't receive a phone call about this one, but I'm glad I didn't, because that would have not been fun to go out to. You can go to the next picture, Trina. Here's your blue ribbon Waterbody scoring ranking. Strawberry number 1, Deer Creek number 2, Jordanelle number 4. So that shows the importance of effective sampling, and what leads to effective sampling is nets that don't have holes in them. If we want to go back out, Trina, you can go to the Documents tab. And click on. Hey, I could have got you on that one, I guess. So if you click on that one, that's a quote for my gill net, which I realized this morning Wes must have a good friend at Duluth Nets, because I realize my quote for curtain nets is $400 more than his quote is for curtain nets. But the dimensions are the same, so I got to do some digging on why Wes's quote's a little cheaper than my quote is. But we're looking at, for me, 2 sinking gill nets, 2 floating gill nets, and a curtain net. At my price was $2,700. Wes and Allen are requesting 4 more, so that's another $2,000. So we're approximately $5,000 in nets between myself and the Strawberry crew asking for you guys. So this isn't your typical project. This isn't staffing people. This isn't habitat restoration. This isn't access-based. But this helps us get fisheries management questions answered. A lot of our nets go through the ringer in all our water bodies. They're not just for Deer Creek. They're not just for Jordanelle. They're not just for Utah Lake. I put mine in carp-infested systems that get shredded by carp every year. Jeremy can attest to that because I've forced him to pick nets with me a lot on Yuba, and they end up with holes that you can drive a truck through sometimes, and you just can't fix those. It costs, even paying a technician to fix those is not cost effective versus just buying a new net. So again, completely different project than what you just heard from Mike or any of these other future projects coming up. But again, this helps us manage our fisheries just as well as staffing, just as well as habitat structures, just in a different fashion. So you guys got any questions?
Do you have nets run over by boats a lot since you have such high traffic into your reservoirs?
That net that got ran over was actually in a no wake zone. So
Sweet.
yeah, so they shouldn't have been running that fast to run it over, but they did. I've looked into maybe going with lighted buoys because of how popular these reservoirs are getting.
Yeah, yeah, you have a different suite of challenges there.
But
than some of the others.
Typically in October on Jordanelle, there's not a lot of boat traffic out there when we sample. So you play the luck of the draw, and hopefully they don't run it over. And same thing with Strawberry. It's not a recreational boater's destination. So a lot of the anglers, they're not fishing at night. They're not boating too much past dark. So they're normally safe. But yeah, I'm starting to think about maybe lighted buoys might be an answer to help solve it. But
yeah,
this curtain net was floating on the surface, so it was spanned 150 feet across, but the top of it was right at the surface. So it was blocking a lot of area. And we put buoys throughout, as you could tell, those big white jugs and orange buoys on the top, but it's not always the case when who knows who's boating at midnight or something on Jordanelle and what kind of beverages they've consumed potentially. So,
how long do these nets typically last?
We bought our original batch of curtain nets when we started our Jordanelle management plan, so 2017. I still have some, but it's always nice to kind of replace something when you do lose it, because you never know when you're going to lose more. And a lot of ones we already have are starting to get holes. But again, we don't sample as much as Wes and Allen. That's why their request is 4. They're out every single year and have been even out sampling in the springtime. So they're using theirs twice a year in some extent. And yeah, kokanee are a lot easier to pull out of nets, and so are rainbows and cutthroat. But sometimes they get twisted, and sometimes it's easier just to cut one string than it is to spend 20 minutes.
Ed
twisting
Johnson
fish.
said to never cut your gill net.
I know.
What are you doing?
It's horrible, especially when there's carp, as Jeremy can attest.
He only dealt with trout, really.
You get a carp spine in a gill net, they twist and spin, and it's not easy. So gill nets probably have a little shorter lifetime because they get used in other reservoirs, where curtain nets are very species specific, so they last a little bit longer.
10 years ain't too bad, or close to it.
Yeah. So
Any other questions for Tyler? Okay, thank you much.
Thank you.
All right, who was next? Carson, is that you? All right. Okay, Carson's going to talk to us about helicopter stocking to support cutthroat trout restoration.
Just to reintroduce myself, I'm Carson Inkhouse. I'm an aquatics biologist in the Northeast region for the DWR. So this project is asking for support to helicopter stock after some Colorado River cutthroat trout restoration projects. go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so just a brief overview. We use these helicopters to transport fish into remote areas for restocking streams that have been treated in prior years. For this specific case, these streams are located in the Upper Sheep Creek and Upper Carter Creek drainages on the north slope of the UNT Mountains. Next slide. Okay, so why is this necessary? So these areas will be restocked. They have been recently treated, and they do not currently have the number of fish that we would like in these areas. Restocking streams post-treatment at the earliest possible date maintains angler approval by allowing utilization of our fisheries. So big thing is this garners more acceptance for these projects. If you can get fish back in, that's one of our biggest complaints about these projects, is people are upset that there aren't any fish in the places they want to fish. So using a helicopter, can you go up just a little bit? Very good. So main thing is it allows us to reach areas that we wouldn't normally be able to reach, either by hiking or by horseback. It allows us to stock in higher densities. We can take more fish up higher, and we can reduce mortality of the fish that we stock. So even if we did move these fish up in horse and then pack them in, there's a good chance we could have a lot of fish die in that transportation time. Next slide. So our objectives for this project is we want to complete all of the stocking on the Carter Creek and Sheep Creek drainage in one day. We want to accelerate the repopulation of these areas with Colorado River cutthroat trout, and we want to manage these areas as conservation populations, contributing directly to Utah's cutthroat trout stream mileage. And then just to go over the budget, so in total we're just asking for $19,000. This is just all contractual services to hire helicopter pilots to bring a helicopter out, fuel trucks, and then sling our fish dropping device over streams to drop the fish. One thing I'd like to say is that, Mike talked about these projects being long, and we've worked in these drainages for over 10 years, and we're finally getting to the point where we can get the fish we want back where they need to be, and this is that last final step to get things accomplished and get it done. Any questions?
Any questions for Carson?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'm the next one too.
You're the next one. Gotcha. Gotcha. Too many tabs open. Middle fork.
Yep. Okay. And then I've got a PowerPoint also. Okay, so this project is an angler survey on Middle Fork Sheep Creek and Spirit Lake. So Middle Fork Sheep Creek and Spirit Lake are located in the Sheep Creek drainage on the north slope of the Uintas. We're planning on conducting the survey this year in June, July, August, and September. So why is this necessary? So the north slope UNT Colorado River cutthroat trout restoration has been ongoing for 8 years, like I just talked about. The Middle Fork of Sheep Creek, including Spirit Lake, will be retreated in 2027. There was a treatment of this same area in 2012. This proved to fail. We don't know the exact reasons why, but we have to go in and retreat this. We're looking to collect angler use information, which allows us to better manage the fisheries post-treatment, and the survey itself provides an educational tool when communicating with the public about the upcoming treatment. So our objectives, we're looking to utilize dedicated hunters and creel clerks to complete 4 months of angler surveys. We're looking to collect important pre-restoration data points and angler use information. And we're looking to complete a creel report to summarize that data and implement in management decisions post. So going in the budget here, grand total $10,340 going in the project. A little over half of that is in kind. Our asking total is about $4,800 which includes personal services to hire a technician to do the creel or angler surveys, and then the motor pool cost to get them up there. And like I said with the last project, the Middle Fork and Spirit will be really the last arm to this very large meta population of Colorado River cutthroat trout that we're restoring. So, you know, we're getting those final steps, and we're looking to see how it impacts people, and, you know, get people to think about Colorado River cutthroat trout as a more desirable species. And you can see this survey as a valuable tool to accomplish our goals. And is there any questions on that one?
I will say that the brook trout just jumped that barrier, so that was repaired, what, in 2017, 2016, the barrier on the Middle Fork. So it shouldn't fail again, and then the North Fork and that lower section will be treated also, right? So failure shouldn't happen again.
We're going to do everything we can.
Yeah, I guess that could have been it. Mm.
We've had anecdotal reports of anglers pitching them off.
Oh, wow. Okay. Gotcha.
So fulfilling this project and eventually the next couple gets rid of that problem by treating those fields.
Right. The potential nearby sources. Yeah. Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So the last two that we have left, they're just projects that we are going to fund, right? So the Southern Region Biologist, I'm not going to have Nick come up and justify his job, the poor guy. So, but I did think if he could just give us a kind of some background on like a couple of his upcoming projects, that could be cool. But you guys know the good work that he does, so.
Yeah, so I think most of you have gone through this, kind of have an understanding of this project, but maybe for some of the newer members. So when Blue Ribbon was first came together, the group that was pushing for it and got it through as an executive order, a big part of the idea was let's have some money to do projects, which is what you've been hearing. At the time, they went to the aquatics manager in the Southern region, and said, hey, you know, we're going to try and get some money for you to do projects. And his comment was, I don't need money for projects. I need another person. So part of the original agreement was we'll fund a biologist in the Southern region, and at the time, the Central region. That Central region position, and I'm not sure the details on it, but it is now being funded by the Division of Wildlife. And my current position, the Southern Region Biologist position, is about 60% Blue Ribbon, 40% other DWR funding. So anyway, that's kind of the history of it and how we ended up with this position and this funding source and everything. So I just kind of work on all sorts of aquatics, sport fish stuff in the Southern region. So I mean, some of the big stuff you've heard today, the Panguitch Lake Siphon, that's a big project I'm working on. The barriers are always a big project. We're going to be doing a creel survey at Kolob Reservoir, a Blue Ribbon fishery, just typical monitoring at all our Blue Ribbon waters and other waters. Boulder Mountain's always a big effort. Taylor Shamo, who's one of our biologists in Richfield, he's doing a master's degree right now, so he's not able to kind of do as much on the waters close to him, so I'm kind of covering Boulder Mountain and some of the waters by him. So that's kind of the big stuff in my work plan for the upcoming year. Is that kind of what you had in mind?
Yes, thank you, Nick. So go ahead and score it, but we're going to fund that one, so we're not going to boot Nick out. So, and then the last one is just the Blue Ribbon Fisheries Administration, and I think I just said about $6,000 again. I will kind of, you know, if there's $4,000 left in the budget, I think that's fine too, right? Like if we can fund everything else and have $4,000 left over for the administration portion, that's fine. So it's 6,000, just kind of a rough number. This year I did with that. I've been, of course, that buys your lunch for the meetings. It also, we got a banner for the fishing day on the hill. What else did we get? We got the bingo cards, and then the tablecloth, right? So some outreach stuff, and then it also does fund shirts and vests and things like that, your hats and stuff that you got when you first joined the council. So it's typically just used for stuff like that, and if it's not spent at the end of the year, then we just roll it up into something else and try and find a good home for it. So that's what that is. Go ahead and score that, but know that there's gonna be some amount for that as well. So okay, any questions on any of the projects? Any other discussion, concerns before we move on? Yeah, so I gave Mike Slater 300 for the expo, and then I have 200. So if he doesn't use them all at the expo, which I have no idea, right? But he'll just keep them down there because he does a lot of outreach. So between the two places, we've got quite a few. If you've got another occasion in mind, I've got a couple packs of 100 up there I could give you if you want.
Yeah, I can take some.
Okay.
We got a flight training thing tonight.
Oh, okay. Sure.
The awareness.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll run up and grab them after the meeting.
I don't know what a bingo card is. If I'm the only one, I don't know what a bingo card is.
Let me see if I can find it. If I can find it real quick, that'll help, right? Then we don't have to explain it, but it's kind of cool. We'll see if I can find it, though. That's the kicker. There it is. So yeah, they're all blue ribbon waters, except Calder technically isn't anymore, but I didn't bother taking it off. So they each have a number. So yeah, whatever you fish, you just cross it off. You get your free space, like in a typical bingo card. And yeah, it's all about just, what waters have I fished, or what waters am I going to, after I fish them, cross them off. So just kind of a fun little thing. People really liked them. They keep asking for them. So, and they're dirt cheap. It's like 15 cents a card. So we ordered a bunch. Okay, anything else on projects? Okay,
Fish Creek Bridge. At our last meeting, we said that, there might be one more added to be the Fish Creek Bridge.
I don't know.
I wrote that as a
Does anybody know?
talk about that as possible. I know we were already above budget now, I don't need any more.
So, yeah, I don't have any recollection. So I guess I'm thinking no. Sorry, I believe you. I just don't remember. And without any additional information, we're just going to say no, it didn't. We don't need to worry about that. Okay, so now just moving on to just typical blue ribbon, just ongoing business. I wanted to talk about Waterbody scoring. I know some of you have been on the site, so here it is, Waterbody scoring. So it's all there. We haven't really updated this section here, but we did talk about like gill netting and spawning volunteer opportunities. So that'll just take you, if you click on that, that'll take you to the volunteer sheet, which is also, you can link from the home page. So I just wanted to see if, I know some of you have probably been talking to Emily, but she was really, she was thinking that like the April Bear Lake gill netting might be a really good opportunity for folks to, if you're able to come out, especially in April, you'll see a good, like the species assemblage and just the size structure. You'll see a lot more variety, I guess. So I guess I just wanted to emphasize that as a potential. She could take 2 per day, or if more people wanted, if we wanted to try and organize a trip or something like that, like a group outing, Taylor and Chris are available to just bring another regional boat out so we can have like a whole blue ribbon group if we want it. So I'm just throwing that out there. If we're not ready to talk about putting dates on a calendar, that's fine too. Any thoughts? You can look at calendar. Yeah, because you haven't added anything. Look, share. Brian Engelbert. No, this is, yeah. I can reshare it though, so you have a recent link, but you have it. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'll send that out, put that on. Hopefully folks are checking this. Yeah, this list will continue to grow. Anything non-blue ribbon, feel free to add that, because sometimes schedules just line up better with non-blue ribbon work, and it's still fun to get out. I did add a link here, or just a tab here for council members to put in their hours if you're a dedicated hunter. So. All right. There, okay. So yeah, if we're not ready to talk about that, that's fine. I just wanted to point that out. She thought that was going to be a good opportunity. And then, so here's the forms. So if you click on the forms, this should take you to Bear Lake, hopefully, because of course I copied and pasted, right? And then went back and changed all the references. So Dean already pointed out where I missed one. So if you do notice anything funky, let me know so I can correct it. But this is your rating form. You just have to have fished these waters once in the last 2 years. Obviously more is great, but the minimum requirement is once in the last 2 years. And for you folks, assuming you make it onto the council, you'll have plenty of time. We won't rate until November, so you'll have plenty of time. Yeah, I guess that's probably all I needed to mention for that. Were there any questions? Sure.
Question about the non-blue ribbon volunteer opportunities. What could I put something on there? Like, what is that for?
Oh, that's for the biologists who, if they need help.
Oh, if they need helpers that aren't blue ribbon.
Yeah, we're just keeping the blue ribbon waters separate from the non-blue ribbon, just in case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. So I have a Trout Unlimited grant to help restore the Soapstone Creek, and my grant is for the Provo River side, so to keep the sediment out of the Provo headwaters. And I need 100 volunteers on August 8th and August 14th or 16th.
So you have specific dates?
I do have.
Yeah.
It may not be those.
Okay.
It's the 8th plus 7th. Yeah. Okay. So the 14th is right. Jump in there, Tyler.
We have an onslaught of dedicated hunters that would probably help with a project like that. Okay. So have you worked, what region? I bet that would probably be Clint though, wouldn't it?
Soapstone?
That's such a, yeah.
It's kind of like
It's such a weird boundary. Yeah, it's where all three of them meet, so.
Typically, that's a really good, yeah.
Yeah.
Ideally, like probably end of July, but no one,
together
not no one, but
Blue Ribbon members and just say, hey, this is what we're doing.
They only rifle hunt, yeah.
they'll like it.
Yeah, Jane, reach out to send myself an email, and I'll try to figure out where exactly that is on our boundary. But we could probably get that posted through our dedicated hunter site with our outreach coordinators.
So we used dedicated hunters at Strawberry.
Yeah.
1 year. So the dedicated hunters they're designated to specific areas?
No, it's just who gets the project posted.
Oh, okay.
Where it's going to come from and be advertised.
It's
advertised as a state, but it's which regional office is coordinating the posting. So you can start with me, and then I'll see if.
Thank you.
Will you tell us the dates again?
I think it is August 8th, and I think the 8th is a Saturday, and then the next Saturday. So maybe it's the 15th. I think that's when it is. We're going to build beaver antelope BDAs, and also plant willows and native stuff, and seeds, things too.
8th and 15th, okay. Sorry, Garn's tormenting me over here. No, they're not. That's AI generated. No, they're not.
I'm sorry.
My world has been rocked. All right, Jane, I'll update your email address. So yeah, we've got it in here, and people can just contact you. I'll have that email address updated.
They're down by 11 at half.
All right, enough. Okay, I can't think anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. All right, outreach schedule. So I just wanted to run through this because we talked about outreach. So this is kind of what we settled on, and there is a link to this on this site. If you scroll down here, this is, if you remember, this was like Faith's list of things that she already has. Like, they just help us with a number of things ongoing every year. So, you know, ice fishing, tournaments, trips. They always do Blue Ribbon Waterbodies after the November meeting. So that's ongoing. But so what we talked about for just this year for Blue Ribbon to start highlighting, or to highlight on month-to-month basis, Darby and I are working on a blog, just just connecting Utahns to fishing and their fisheries heritage. It sounds, I don't know, kind of strange, I suppose, but it's kind of part of an emphasis to just remind people of how important fishing used to be, and just, you know, remind them of how important it really still is, or it could be in everyday life. Tying those together. So that is actually still in progress, even though we said January, we're working on it. We went to Fishing Day on the Hill. We talked about a seminar in March, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think we'll just rely on the regions. April, we're going to remind folks about don't ditch a fish and why, and tying in the importance of, you know, just not illegally introducing fish, especially into blue ribbon waters, but really any waters, and how important those waters are to like a subset of or group of anglers. And sometimes it's a lot, and maybe not every time, but there's people that really like those waters and don't want to see it ruined with an illegal introduction. Boating etiquette, that's kind of been a big deal lately, so just reminding folks. And I think we'll probably partner with parks, and they might change our timing because they do have that new, it was just kind of passed into law that boating class, I guess, and then you have to take the test associated with it's in conjunction with the AIS rules now. So they might want to release that at a little bit different time, but that was something we talked about needing to happen, and then that law just kind of happened anyway. So bringing in mentoring in June, talking about projects, the final project list in July, sending people to the high country in August, and really like we probably won't even breathe a word of, you know, trout fishing starting in June through September. So just trying to, except for fishing in the high country, and just really focusing people where they maybe won't have, they won't be as detrimental to populations. Partnerships in September. So this was kind of in advance of a shutdown if we have something like that, just to remind people how important our federal cooperators are to us, and what all they do for us and for the angling community. And then October, DWR adaptations to changing angler needs and desires, and just incorporate this, like how we're responding to various survey results. Like we had the Kokanee survey, and Matt Bartley and I are working on that. We'll be putting out that, like the results of that pretty soon. And we've got the statewide angler survey coming up again, and then we've also got our regulation survey that we'll be posting, and just how do we use all of this information. And then November would just be just healthy, diverse fisheries, and blue ribbon, just focusing on like what it means to be blue ribbon. And again, I think I already mentioned that was down here on Face Radar anyway. So that was kind of the schedule that we talked about, and a little bit more fleshed out now after talking with Faith about it. So that's that. Were there any questions? Go ahead.
I'm talking a lot. This is my most talking since I've been in
That's
this group.
great.
So High Country Fly Fishers is going to do a booth at Deer Valley Ponds. If we have to get permits, we haven't figured that out. But anyway, it'll be on Free Fish Day.
Okay.
And if DWR wanted to be there, like whoever that would be, Tyler, that'd be swell. Like we'll provide the rods and all that stuff, and you know, teach a kid to fish.
I think I just deleted something. Okay, so you said High Country.
Yeah, it's High Country Fly Fishers. It's the TU chapter, Park City.
What day is that?
Free Fish Day is June 6th, Trina? I want to say it's June 6th.
Yes, I think you're right. Fishing Day, June 6th. Okay, we can also maybe put that on the volunteer list. Okay. You have the volunteers.
We have the volunteers.
Oh,
Just, your note said that in June you were gonna do a kid mentoring. You could tie them together if you wanted.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. All right. Okay. Okay. Any?
Can we chat for a second about the kit one?
Sure.
That'd be something that I think a couple of biologists would be interested in teaming up on.
Oh, okay.
Just making sure all our avenues are covered. Like, I've got more conflict on the Green River than ever, and I want to make sure the river and the lakes are all covered.
Okay.
I guess another question for you would be, are we also selling this through Division of Recreation? Because that's great for the fishermen to receive it, but it'd be better yet if the
So, to be honest, right? Like we'll run it through parks and talk to them about it. But you'll see here, it's more about sending anglers to certain locations, right? Like tips for avoiding wreck boaters. I mean, it's more about defensive driving, right? Like defensive angling and helping folks with dealing with wreck boaters. That's what, I don't know, that was just my thought. It doesn't have to be that. And so I could maybe get the kibosh, when I send it to Faith. But to me, it's like we're probably going to end up talking to anglers, not wreck boaters. So it's like how to survive in this new world.
I get that
Right.
aspect, but I'm wondering if it could also be sold through Faith to her Division of Rec counterpart to have a more joint response.
I'm sure I can ask.
That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we definitely would run through that program and just let them know that it's coming out and see what they wanted, if they wanted to partner. But my thought was, it's crazy out there. So can we help people figure out how to navigate this new, not quite new, I guess, but it just seems like it's getting worse and worse. So, any other questions or comments on the outreach schedule? Okay, and we already kind of went through some of the volunteer opportunities. So, budget update was next. I'm gonna close those down. All right, so we didn't fund as many projects last year, but I think we're doing really good. We're 75% of the way through the year almost, and only have 54% of the budget expended. But I mean, very little spending happens in the winter months anyway, at least charges. So, and like we heard today, the Strawberry River Restoration Project, that will be, like a lot of that work is already done. There's just some purchasing that needs to happen. So that'll be expended. You can see that's already spent out. That's all but $250. Nick does a great job of spending his money. That's only 10 grand. So I think that we're going to be in really good shape at the end of this year. So the UNA Basin project manager, they bill me quarterly. So I've only been billed through December. So we'll have 6 more months. So that should be spent out. So yeah, I think we're doing really good on the budget. So I don't think we'll have that same. I remember talking last year where we need to make sure to spend our money. So and there was concerns about whether we would, and I don't think we're going to have that concern this year. So I'll keep updating that, and I'll let you know how it goes in June as well. But I think we'll be pretty well spent out by then. Any questions? Okay. All right, then I wanted to run through just the proposed regulations. So just a little bit of background of where we are in the process. So we had some draft regulation proposals. We took those to you guys, to UAC, to Rocky Mountain Anglers, to our bass and walleye groups, and just got some feedback. And the next phase is we kind of summarized what we're going to take forward, or what we think we're going to take forward to the angler survey. And so now just running them past y'all one more time to get any, no Mentimeter survey or anything like that this time, but if there's any, any additional feedback on these proposals, now is the time. Because the next process, part of the process will just go to that random selection of licensed anglers, about 25,000, so not to the general angling public. So I'm highlighting the blue ribbon and potential blue ribbon only. So at Pelican Lake, you might remember we talked about just going to the statewide bluegill limit of 50 fish, and then increasing the daily bag limit for black bullhead there to no limit. So the no limit was more supported than the Muskill. So we'll just go no limit. It kind of sends the same message, though there's no concern about harvest there. So that was Pelican. Starvation. And so that was going to be adding in that spawning closure for spearfishing walleye. So there's already a bass closure there. So just adding in the same dates, the walleye closure. And then Hostway is still working through the final walleye slot limit, but he's thinking a 20 fish limit with the vast majority of those under 15 inches, only one over 20 inches, and not allowing harvest on 15 to 20 inches. And then we talked about allowing bow fishing for all species, including a spawn enclosure for what the sparrows have a spawn enclosure for. So quite a few changes at Starvation. Lower Stillwater ponds, there was concern about harvest there, so just cutting that to a 2 trout limit. Manaway, reducing the bluegill limit from 50 to 15. I think it might have been from Rocky Mountain Anglers, there was concern about, well, is it really anglers or is it the largemouth predation? And just the research that they're doing there just shows that they are getting, their anglers are picking off the larger fish. So just trying to preserve more of the larger fish a little longer. Willard Bay, that modeling, if you remember Taylor's presentation, it looks like a 6 walleye limit is going to work best there. They must be at least 18 inches. Only one may exceed 24 inches. So those fish, if you remember, they're growing really fast at Willard Bay. So they're about 3 years old when they hit 18 inches. So they're just trying to make sure they can get up to 3 years old and hit that reproductive age. Lake Powell, there was some concern about, I think it was allowing the smallmouth bass, allowing spearfishing for smallmouth during what's now a spawn enclosure. But the region is very insistent that they do need harvest down there on smallmouth. It's not going to hurt the population, so they're pushing forward with that. And then adding Lake Powell to the list where set line fishing is allowed, and then allow bow fishing for striped bass. Again, no harm there if we have harvest, lots of harvest. And then we go down to the Boulder Mountains, specifically Oak Creek and Donkey Lake. That was decreasing the limit there. Right now there's a 16 trout limit, but reducing it to either 4 or 8. So what the region wanted to do, because it was split. You guys were split and UIC was split between 4 or 8. So it's like, well, we just probably want a little bit more protective limit, but we're not quite sure what's needed. So we're just going to poll everybody on the statewide survey just to see 4 or 8 and just see what folks say. And then this didn't go forward, but just kind of came from some discussions out of the Boulder Mountains team, I guess. Just the closure dates don't quite line up with access now, and there would be no harm in shifting those dates, allowing a little bit more access. So instead of going from January 1st through the 3rd Saturday of April, now going January 1st through April 1st. And then pushing that date back from November 1st back to December 1st. So you get a couple more, about a month and a half more ability to fish the boulders each year. So that'll go out to the statewide survey. I don't know if there's any questions, but you've heard like I said, most of those before, just not that closure on the Boulder Mountains. Everything else was, you guys heard about. Any questions or concerns?
So the early closure on the Boulder Mountain was designed to protect spawning fish. Is that no longer a concern for Boulder?
It is not a concern, according to Mike Hadley. Do you have any additional?
No, a lot of this really, yeah, so this really came out of a meeting we had with our law enforcement conservation officers in the area, and basically they thought this would be a lot easier for them to enforce, especially with making the dates like starting on the first of the months, and we didn't see a reason to restrict it. Basically, they said it would be easier to enforce if we could narrow that window, and we didn't see a reason to keep it as wide as it was.
So does it even need a closure if we're not protecting fish, spawning fish?
Well, we think we are. It varies by lake, and a big part of that conversation was this change is nice, but probably the biggest thing that came out of that conversation was just working with them on they only have so much manpower and time and effort to enforce the different regulations, and working with them to target the areas that are important. And yeah, the spawning aspect, it isn't as big of a concern as it used to be, especially with lakes like McGath that we're not as worried about anymore.
But Scout Lake could be a problem.
And that was one that we talked to them about keeping an eye on. Yeah.
And so, tell me more about Scout Lake. Why would that?
Just a smaller body of water, more congregation of fish over spring structure.
Okay. Anything else? Nope. Okay. Yeah, just a couple more things. So, Blake with Muskies Inc. I always get those two confused. So Blake at Muskies Inc. They're holding a beach day at Jordanelle. So I think he's meeting with folks tomorrow to pin down a date, and I guess he's just throwing it out there. It could be a potential outreach day, looking at mid-May, and I guess he's going to have just Bass Anglers Coalition. He's just wondering if Blue Ribbon wants to participate and be out there and talk about what Blue Ribbon Council does. So if we do want to, I guess I'd be interested to hear if there'd be someone interested in, I guess, staffing a table, I guess that's what he's thinking, with just some information. Do we know about what time he's thinking?
Do we know the day?
He said he's gonna pin that down tomorrow when he meets with Amanda. So I can send that out. Yeah, it's mid-May, but he doesn't have a specific date. And I assume he's talking Saturday, but I don't know. There's gonna be more people on a Saturday. So.
Yeah, if you can send it,
Okay. Yeah, I usually send something out like summarizing, everything and wrapping things up from a meeting, so I'll be sure to include what he found out. Okay. And then the Pineview update was really just, he came and talked to us last meeting about the issues at Pineview. We all are kind of familiar with some of them, and just kind of his efforts, what he's been trying to accomplish. And it ended up being on a bill, right, where it just asking state parks to review whether or not Pineview should be a state park, whether they could take it on, whether they were interested. And I guess I don't know what all that would entail. There was a number of different locations on there too. That bill didn't pass, so that was kind of a bummer. But at least it was there, and it wasn't for lack of support. It just, there was a bunch of other things they talked about. So he did say he has a meeting April 27th with Scott Strong, and I just asked him if he wanted some support from Blue Ribbon. So if anyone, I think we would just want it to be one person. But if anyone did want to join him just to kind of show how important it is, I think we could send someone. I don't know what time that is, but I just figured I'd see if anyone was interested first. I don't know what day April 27th is. So April 27th is a Monday. So I'm sure it's during work hours, but I don't know exactly what time. I can find out what time. You what? Yeah. Okay, I'll let you know what time then. I think he was a little worried about, you know, not wanting to overrun, you know, and have too many people, like, you know, multiple anglers against Scott Strong or something like that. But I don't think that, you know, if we had one person there that could speak to the importance of Pineview as a blue ribbon fishery, I don't think we'd overwhelm him, you know. But I not that I don't think Blake can handle it. I think he probably could, but I think sometimes it's nice to have a little bit extra support. So I'll just keep you posted then on what time. And then we had talked also a few meetings ago about a new no wake area on Jordanelle. Craig and I did meet with Ty and Chris from State Parks and Outdoor Recreation, and they are interested in pursuing that. It's funny though, the whole thing started on Jordanelle, and they didn't think that, was it the Rock Cliffs arm or whatever, we'd talked about extending that out further. They weren't sure that that was necessary, but that north end, we talked about something on the north end. So, but Tyler's going to get me revised maps. The next step is just to meet with them again in about a month. The biologists are going to give us some feedback on some of the locations that we mapped out. And yeah, I think it's kind of wheeling and dealing, maybe. Just trying to get what that exact area is. So, and then the next step after that, then of course, is talking to the parks managers, making sure they're on board. And then the next step after that is getting it on the boating advisory council discussion, and then having open houses. So of course it's a process, but these things probably always are, but it seemed like a positive step forward to maybe trying to be able to have different areas on these very busy waters for different folks who are using it. So I'll continue to keep y'all posted. And then the only other thing on the agenda, unless somebody else has something I'm forgetting, I just wanted to present, and it's only 5 slides, so hang with me. It's kind of been a long day, but this, some of you have already heard a little bit about it if you heard our last Project Wild or DWR Wild podcast with Drew and Roberts. You heard a little bit about it if you were at the Angler Social for the Utah American Fisheries Society meeting. You heard a little bit about it. And if you read the press release, I think it was from last week, you already know a little bit about it. But I just kind of wanted to give you that snapshot of a little bit more in depth of why. So this was basically an effort to say we've got lots of changes kind of coming up in the state of Utah, and how do we address those? And we started this back in June of 23, and we're just now wrapping it up. Over that time, we formed a strategy to assist us in planning for the future, and we identified current and potential future threats. The hatchery managers told us what keeps them up at night. We gathered information about the needs and limitations of our hatcheries and also the regions. We focused our efforts on 6 key aspects. So that was capacity and infrastructure of our hatcheries. We are currently at the maximum that we can produce, and we are starting to see disease outbreaks, which was another. Fish health was a big factor. So if you can reduce densities, of course, then your disease issues should be reduced. They might not go away, but they should be reduced. So definitely a major consideration. But we also have LOA coming online, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. We have management and conservation, outreach, habitat and water quality, and then hatchery optimization. Hatchery optimization was an effort to take all the data we have and all the fish that we stock, cold water mainly, that's what we have a lot of numbers for, and look where, like the characteristics of the different hatcheries, their water temperatures and different variables that they have at the hatchery, where we're raising the different strains of rainbows and some of the cutthroat, and what places did the best and what places did the worst. Like we're looking at basically where strains should be raised, where they're going to be the most successful. Also looking at water quality. Apparently cutthroat don't utilize feed as well. They're messy. And so if you've got a TMDL in a location, a total maximum daily load limit, right, water quality issues, well, we've had to move cutthroat off station basically and figure out what else we're going to stock there, or sorry, raise there. We've compiled a substantial amount of data, wrote a plan that has actionable goals, and developed a plan also for outreaching to our anglers. So the why of this, so these are little mud snails. So this is what keeps our hatchery managers up at night, and I'll just direct you here first. So invasive species like this, pathogens, we sometimes lose like hundreds of fish and probably thousands of fish if it's really bad. So you can imagine that keeps those guys up at night. Population growth, it does affect our hatcheries, right? If we've got limited water and we've got increased demand, that's going to be an issue. So water supply, here's that water quality mentioned. Land ownership, there are some towns that don't like having a hatchery nearby, which is weird, but there are some towns that don't enjoy it. Infrastructure and equipment, like Drew said earlier today, Lowell really was in need of some upgrades. It was a pretty old facility. And I'll just point out this, there's quite a few here, right? But response time, we've got alarms and things for, just systems that could go wrong in the hatchery, and they go off, but, response time is an issue too, right? Someone's always on station, but, yeah, it's still a challenge. Just looking down here in the corner, this is just showing population growth. The population's basically expected to, I don't know if it's going to it won't quite double, right? But we're going to add a lot of people in the next 25 years. So, when you look at the demands on our water, and fish need water, so I've been told, we got to figure something out, right? So all of these things, and not the least of which are feed costs, which just has skyrocketed in recent years. Everything's more expensive. So like I said, we have this LOA facility coming back online. We could just use that facility and those 350,000 pounds to just raise more fish. Or we could be a little bit more strategic about it, and we could say, okay, we haven't been able to close down a hatchery to do a full decontamination in years because we've been at full capacity with our 12 hatcheries that we have online. Maybe we could use LOA to increase the flexibility in our hatcheries. And, if we need to clean a hatchery, we can shut it down. We could move fish around and plan for it. You don't just do that, the next day, right? It's like a 2-year, 3-year planning process. But we can do that, and we can use LOA to improve flexibility in our hatchery program. So there was a lot of emphasis on, doubling the state's population or nearly doubling it. Doesn't mean that we're going to double fish stocking. In fact, we can't. This is pretty well showing, this is our capacity now. And then you go out to 2050 when our population is going to be so high, and we still have the same capacity. But the good news is that, you might keep the same number of anglers, but as a percent of the population, I guess it tends to go down, right, once you get a larger population, which in a way is kind of bad, but in a way, like if you're maintaining the number of anglers or even increasing it a little bit, it's not a terrible thing. We just need to plan for it. We have a lot of waters. We stock a lot of fish. We stock way more than any other state. So you can see here the average of all the states. If you take Utah out, that average goes down way far. Looking at all our surrounding states, it's definitely a lot less. So we just don't think that we can stock our way out of or our way into angler satisfaction. But the research shows that it's not a one-to-one relationship anyway. That's the point of this slide. It's like you don't necessarily make people happy by just stocking more fish. or even fish at all, right? There's other things that make people happy, and certainly anglers have different motivations for doing the things that they do. We can also identify strategies to help us ensure increased or maintaining satisfaction, throughout time. We can use regulations to help keep fish in the water a little bit longer. We can use different species. A lot of our warm water fish will reproduce naturally eventually, or just recruit on their own in a water body. And we can't use them everywhere because of native species concerns, but where we can, it's a good tool to not have to continue to raise, the catchable rainbow trout. That takes up a lot of space. And then we're also looking at incorporating more native species into our hatcheries, which to date haven't had the funding to have a place in the hatchery. So that's a really welcome change with our species protection account funding. And this is kind of just the whole snapshot, right? We've got data, research, plans, different events going into habitats and angler preference and dynamics and a changing partner landscape. So we're going to use that to adjust our conservation strategies, management strategies, and species needs. Then look at hatchery optimization and construction. Right, Loa's in the process, but we've updated a lot of our hatcheries just because they end up, right? Time goes by, they're 40 years old and they need a different, I don't know, hatcheries. Maybe they need a research facility. I don't know what the needs tend to be, but it's certainly updating. There's definitely a lot of advancement in hatchery technology. So, but fish health concerns and water constraints and species requirements all go into that. But yeah, it's just kind of the cycle, right? We implement and adjust as needed, and you monitor, and we're just going to keep in that pattern. And we've got basically it's a 30-year plan. And because of some smart people in the aquatics section, we've got piece by piece what needs to happen each year to be able to get to that end point. Outreach and messaging is an important part of that. I don't know that there's going to be a ton of change that people are going to notice, but I think they've probably already seen it, but it's probably going to happen more and more. We're just not going to be able to stock rainbow trout in as many places. Certainly timing wise, we have to already avoid June through September. The hatchery staff's been told if pH isn't good or water temperatures aren't good, don't stock that load, right? And they're like, well, what do we do with it? It can't go back to the hatchery. So we just are all ready to scramble and make it work and figure out where those fish need to go if they can't go where they were intended to go. But that is definitely on our radar. We just have to be flexible and ready to adapt to that. Yeah. So this is just an example of this working document, and I just pulled one table that's showing some of the program actions. So just, we've got this document where we're going to talk about, we're going to review and refine brood hatchery techniques, and you probably can't see, maybe you can see it a little bit, but we're trying to reduce the incidence of disease throughout Utah's hatchery system. So how are we going to do that? Work with the hatchery staff to review and update brood hatchery disinfection and biosecurity practices. We're going to import Arley rainbow trout from Montana for possible replacement of some of these problematic rainbow trout strains like the Hofer Harrison. We're going to begin replacing Egan West Virginia brood with alternate West Virginia brood. Blah, 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 blah. So just showing that there's some very specific things that we've identified as needs. And because we took the aquatics leadership and just assigned them to these different aspects of the plan, we had some pretty smart people just thinking about, okay, how do we make this happen? And it was kind of cool to see, right? We didn't have just hatchery guys over hatchery optimization. We didn't have just the fish health guys over the fish health section. We had, interactions between the different groups. So you weren't necessarily with your area of expertise, but, we're all I think we're pretty smart people. So I think everyone's feedback, even if you weren't in with the group that you would typically work with, I think everyone's feedback was really good. Sometimes it's good to have a fresh set of eyes. And we did that for all of these. So just wanted to run through that real quick. That was kind of really fast, but like I said, there's a podcast. We have our DWR podcast, and they did a great job of laying it out. And that just came out last week. So if you subscribe to our podcast, you probably saw that. And if you don't, it only comes out once a month. So I recommend at least listen to all the fishy ones. So yeah, recently Crockett did, wasn't it Chris did catfish? Yeah, so lots of good stuff. And I think the Blue Ribbon one is online on the site if you haven't listened to that. But that was from a long time ago, but it probably still stands. So anyway, just a little plug for our podcast, which I think is pretty cool. Are there any questions about that implementation plan? I'm sure there are probably lots, but anything you're curious about?
When is Loa going to be done?
So Loa is supposed to have fish on station next year, and they will start stocking fish in fall of 2028, is what I've heard. I don't know. Have you heard anything other than that? Yeah, I keep hearing that, and it's
pretty torn up.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I see aerial imagery, just the updates, but it's always been, fall of 2028, we should get fish out on the ground, so it's pretty cool. Okay. Anything else? That was all I had on the agenda, so I think, is there anything anyone wants to bring up? Anything we need to chat about? I think we're good with like I said, I'll get those score sheets updated. Still have to download it again, of course, if you've already downloaded it. But
And if you already scored, just go back in and take a look.
Yeah.
Update.
And if Duke loses, I'm not working again. I'm just gonna crawl into a hole and die. And
What's the score now?
It's pretty much tied. Let me see.
It was halftime.
61-60.
Are you kidding me?
We're making a comeback.
Oh my God. There's been one other one seed. I shouldn't say one other. There's been one seed in the entire history that fell to a 16. Oh my God. Anyway, so yeah, if they lose, well, give me another day. But they're not losing. Okay. Anything else?
Well, yeah. Anything else for anybody? Well, Trina, thank you. And thank you for for everybody coming and being here and being a part of this.
Yeah, good discussion today.
Good meeting.
And
So we need a motion to adjourn. Mickey, do we have a second? I second it. All right. All in favor? All right. Motion carries. We're dismissed.
Thanks, Trina.
thanks, everyone.